Welcome, welcome. It's good to see you all. Please put in the chat where you are from. Hey Jason. Hi, Kama. Hey, Ashley. All right, we got Houston in the house, Michigan. Yes. Happy New Year, everybody. Louisiana. Awesome. Welcome. We're so glad you're here. New Jersey in the house. All right. Awesome. Well, welcome to Thrive in AI, Shaping the New Generation. My name is LeeAnah James. I am going to be sharing some powerful information with you today. We're going to have an incredible conversation with some thought leaders who are really moving and shaping the marketing space that we live in today. So a little bit about me. I am a marketing strategist here at Kulur Group. I love it here. I have the opportunity to help educate on AI literacy. I'm an advocate for helping audiences navigate the intersection of emotional intelligence, inclusive design, and marketing strategy. It's going to be an incredible time, but it's going to take your participation. So I'm going to ask you, while you are joining us today, to please jump in the chat, be interactive, ask questions, be a part of the conversation. We don't want to talk at you. We want to have a conversation with you. All right, so I'm going to share my slide deck really quick, because you may be wondering, like, what exactly is Thrive, and what is Kulur talking about when it comes to Thrive and shaping the next generation? Let's get into it. So how can we thrive? We know that right now everybody's using AI, right? People are using AI to develop copy. People are using AI for graphics and videos and all kinds of interesting things when we look at the marketplace. However, AI can also be used in a way that is harmful, even if it's unintentional. And so we have a responsibility as industry leaders. Yes, you are an industry leader because you're taking initiative to learn and grow and to be intentional about your movement in the space. And so we as industry leaders have to be aware of the impact of AI and how we can utilize it to positively shape the next generation. So let's look at Thrive. Thrive stands for transparency, human in the loop, relevancy, integrity, verifiability, and empowerment. So we're going to go through all of these. So when we look at transparency and credibility, it's really important that we understand that transparency is twofold. It's not just letting the audience know, hey, this image may have been created with AI, but it also involves internal disclosure. It's important for companies to have processes in place for employees, contractors, even volunteers and interns to be able to disclose their AI usage. We need to know what's going on so that we can protect ourselves, our users, our companies. So transparency and credibility is important. Next, we're going to look at human oversight. One of the things you'll hear a lot when it comes to AI is human in the loop, or HITL. And that just means that there is a human that is making the final judgment on any AI decision. So if you're utilizing AI to develop a policy or to even write a blog or create an image, there is a human that is the final decision maker that bears the responsibility for whatever that AI produces. Next, we have regulation. So we want to make sure that we are holding ourselves accountable to the relevant legislation that is happening. So right now, when we look at AI from a global perspective, the EU AI Act is probably the most robust and comprehensive at the moment, but legislation is always changing. And so understanding what your state laws are, understanding what guidelines are in the states that you may have employees or contractors in. All of these things are going to be very, very important when it comes to the development and the implementation of your AI policy, especially for those of us in the marketing and ad space. There are times where we may outsource things to people that are in different locations around the world. And it's really, really important that we have a clear policy that's going to protect everybody involved. Next, let's look at innovation. All right, so we are a challenger brand agency at Color Group. And so that means we serve the disruptors of the industry. We serve those that see an industry plateau, they're kind of doing status quo, and they come in and say, you know what, I can do it bigger, I can do it better, I can provide value that is missing. And so we work with challengers, and that comes with innovation. We work with people that are very, very innovative, that are creative, that are pushing boundaries. And so it's important to remain agile, but also remain ethical. And the way that we do this is by making sure that what we're putting out and how we're putting it out is lining up with the company's values and what the company finds most important in terms of their relationship with a client or end user. All right, next, let's look at verifiability. Now, when it comes to AI outputs, we've all had situations, I'm sure. Drop a 1 in the chat if you've ever put something into AI and it's giving you something completely untrue. Like, we've all been in situations where we're like, that's not exactly how that works. And so it's important that we verify the information and the outputs that AI is generating, okay? So you have to, again, that goes back, that ties very closely to human in the loop. You have to have a human decision maker that is going to be able to look at whatever was produced and measure it for accuracy, for fairness, and to make sure that what is being put out is actually true to what it is you're trying to create. All right, lastly is explainability and data rights. Now, we've all gone through the season in life where we had to now have those privacy terms and conditions on websites. I remember when that wasn't required. I'm dating myself a little bit here. But now it is the status quo. Like, you have to have your terms and conditions. You have to have your explainer on how you're using the cookies and the data that's collected on your site. And so the same thing is true when it comes to AI. You have to have explainability. How are you coming up with the way that you're interacting with AI, and how is AI producing this output? It's so important that we are being protective over our company's intellectual property, over our personal intellectual property, and definitely over our clients' intellectual property. And so explaining how you came to the conclusion or to the output that was generated is going to help, again, protect everybody that is involved. So we are having this conversation because we really want to drive home the fact that you can do more than exist with AI. You can thrive, but you do have to make sure that you are being intentional about what you're producing, how you're producing it, and who is producing it. All right, so we're going to have some conversations today about the next generation and people who are impacted by the use of AI. I'm so excited to welcome two incredible women to the stage. The first is going to be Miss Chelsea Burns. She is an incredible human being, first and foremost, and she guides conscious companies to sustainable growth through ethical branding and non-manipulative marketing. So refreshing in today's day and age. A former VP with 17 years of experience and a master's in applied psychology from the University of Southern California, She brings a deep expertise in human behavior and healthy brand relationships. She guest teaches at Citadel Institute on the practical application of ethical influence, and she serves as a rally member for the Mom Project. And so I am going to ask Miss Chelsea to come onto the stage. Let me invite you here. All right.
Hello.
The next person that I want to invite to the stage is going to be Miss Ava Torro. Ava Torro is a 2025 dope thinker, and she works with some of the world's largest advertising networks to uncover the narratives, trends, and consumer drivers that shape winning strategies. Her role places her at the intersection of cultural intelligence, audience analytics, and business growth. Her research has informed product roadmaps, guided communication strategies, and enabled sales teams to position solutions with precision and confidence. Let me bring to the stage Miss Ava Torro. Oh my goodness. Welcome, ladies. Thank you for joining us in today's conversation. We're glad to have you guys this morning.
Excited to be here.
Absolutely. Good. Okay, so as we jump right in, I have some questions for you guys around transparency. So we're seeing an $11 billion digital ad ecosystem that is targeting children, and that's just on YouTube. And the data tells us that 48% of Gen Alpha is actually discovering products through YouTube and through influencers on YouTube sharing those products. Chelsea, since you are the psychologist here, can you share with us, like, how should brands be more transparent when it comes to their children, like marketing to children and the use of AI in these systems?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I talk about building an ethical brand, I have 4 core pillars. And the first one starts with consent. So this is an application of what I call relational psychology to brand relationship. And with consent, we're talking about transparency. We're talking about expectation setting. Our society revolves around the fact that a human being is not an adult able to make their own decisions until they are 18 years old. For some reason, in the consumer world, we throw that out the window. And so one of the things I talk about a lot in ethical branding is it's not about completely controlling all of these things. It's about holding space for the unforeseen implications of what you're doing. There is a difference. Ethical branding is not a blanket yes or no, right and wrong, right? Ethics is complicated. That's why we're having these conversations. If it was this or that, we'd have these clear lines in the sand. So for me, as the psychologist, it's important when we're talking about an ethical brand to understand who your audience is, what decisions they are and are not capable of making, and whether or not you're setting up transparency in a way in which can a child actually consent to purchasing these things? Do they understand how that impacts them down the road? I know we'll get into it later, and I'm going to pause here. I'm also a mom of a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old who have not had access to YouTube in their entire lives for many, many of these reasons. So I'll stop there and yeah.
Wow. Okay. So wait a minute. Your kids have not had access to screens for most of their life. Can you unpack that a little bit?
Correct. Yeah. So I was a mass media major in my undergraduate. Okay. I read a book called Last Child in the Woods.
Yeah.
I think. It's been a minute. Anyways, they were already back then uncovering the detrimental effects on child brain development as you take away children's learning through nature and exploration in nature and replace it with a screen. So well before I ever had children, I knew this will be the hill I die on. We eat refined sugar. We do plenty of other things. Screens was not one of them. To the point where I actually even asked my family members to turn televisions off when my children were in the room before the age of 2. I can go into a whole lot of brain science on it, but effectively, there's just too many cons, the way that it affects the human brain, especially before the age of 5. And one of the things that we're seeing is that kids are resilient and they will catch up. Yeah. So my oldest is now 10. We are slowly starting to introduce a little bit more. I have an iPad, right? And understanding like how they can use the technology to learn. But my kids do not have access to the internet.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So we're going to unpack that a little bit later because I have some more questions around that and around the psychology piece of that. I have read that book and I think that it's so powerful, but it also seems very challenging in this day and age to raise a child without screens. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later, especially in terms of marketing to children and some of the trends that we've seen lately. Speaking of trends, Ava, I would love for you to share with us a little bit. What are some trends that you're seeing when it comes to marketing to like Gen Z and Gen Alpha?
Yeah, especially, so we have to split those out. Mainly because Gen Z is definitely a lot older and a lot more financially independent than Gen Alpha is. Gen Alpha has more of the financial knowledge for when they do get old enough. A lot less of them have young members that have high levels of income in comparison to Gen Z. There are Gen Z kids a couple of years back who started building their wealth at 10, 12, 13. This is the generation that was not given the opportunity as often to be outside of technology, very similar to millennials. You know, we came in as the guinea pig generation. We were the ones always taking new tests. We had to do different kind of math every week. And we were kind of told that you have to learn everything all the time, all at once. Gen Z came in and they were immediately at elementary school given smartphones. Millennials, a lot of us, depending on your socioeconomic standing, some of you may have had exposure to smartphones, but maybe didn't own one 24/7. And a lot of the more popular phones were analog. So when we have Gen Z, they're 7, 8, 9, 5, 6. They're given tablets, they're given smartphones, they have multiple screens that parents have bought for them for multiple reasons. And now we have Gen Alpha. Gen Alpha is a little bit different, mainly because they're a lot younger. The oldest side of that spectrum is around 15 or around 16, I believe, depending. So this is a lot of kids who are coming up, and now we're trying to understand how much screen is too much screen. You know, there are a lot of schools that are reliant on them having some type of technological acumen. So even if you're keeping them safe at home for a number of years, by the time they get to high school, they're out with friends. Like you said, there's going to be a limit to when you might as well control it while you can. But I think that's where brands are coming in, and brands are always, every new younger generation gets targeted. There is nothing special about Gen Alpha. When millennials were younger, there were probably marketers having the same question in the room about how to handle us and how to reach us. But I do think in this time where parents have a lot of reasons to be very hesitant of brands reaching out, they have a lot of reasons to be hesitant of technology, there is a lot of opportunity to teach healthy consumption during that time of learning, and maybe that time of sequestering until it's time to learn. Here's what an ad is. I don't think there's anything wrong with having a conversation with your child about what an ad is. You know, that level of education can kind of help them understand, hey, when your favorite influencer sweetheart for your gaming brand, you know, when he talks like this, he's selling something. So he may like it, he may not like it, but it's his financial responsibility to push this brand. Now, if you want to get more curious about it and explore, That's the purpose of ads, for you to explore and learn and get exposure to new things. I think that's a level of education I have never seen from either brands to younger children and parents to children, having this conversation of, this is the ecosystem. Ads aren't going anywhere. In actuality, this is a time for historical conversations about ads, historical conversations about AI, because when things feel too new and rapid, that causes the intimidation. The idea that marketing has been around for years. AI, one of the things I talk about in a lot of my speeches, especially knowing consumer hesitancy across the board with AI, it's grounding people in, when do you think AI got established as a concept? Some people say 2003. Some people say, maybe when I saw that little clip on Microsoft Word. I really just aged myself there. But all that to say, it's actually 1960. That's when it's coined at Dartmouth University. And not only that, that's just when it's coined. There are historic references of these types of systems existing even before that. So education from parents, education from brands, encouraging labeling. I think it's really helpful on certain social platforms. The video for the first 3 seconds may look like it's a regular video. Then boom, you see the piece at the bottom to reinform that this is an ad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really true. I mean, that's important to drive home, is that AI has been around for a long time. And so it's not anything new. It's just more widely available now. But one of the things that you said, and I want to shift the conversation a little bit from the responsibility of parents and educators and shift it more to the responsibility of us as marketers and marketing professionals. One of the things that you said, Ava, is that these new younger generations, younger than millennials, have smartphones and tech that they've been raised with. There's a certain level of tech savviness that is expected from them. And yet we know that there are some risk associated with using the technology the way that we do. Now, going back to Chelsea, you help companies be non-manipulative in their marketing. When we have this generation that has phones and technology in their hands at all times, and we know that we only have 5 to 10 seconds to grab their attention, how is it that we can get our branding message across without being manipulative in some way?
So this comes down to the question I'm asked all the time: isn't all marketing manipulative? And my response is no. And again, this is all kind of like on a spectrum of your own core of integrity and ethos, right? So like, we can all look at one situation and someone can say, we agree with that. And someone else can look at the same thing and say, we don't. And so answering it from my perspective, the line that I draw in the sand with manipulation and marketing is if we are taking away somebody's agency, their ability to choose. If we are doing anything to influence whether or not they can make an objective decision, we are now crossing the line into manipulation. And one of the things that I think is really important for us to understand in marketing and branding, it takes a very high level of emotional intelligence anymore. Because when we even talk about the language we're using, AI, artificial intelligence, there's actually nothing intelligent about it. Intelligent is inherently being able to maybe connect the dots and logic. It doesn't logic. It's not making contextual, maybe to a degree. And Ava, you probably know a lot more about the deeper technology side of it than I do necessarily. But the way that I see it is it's not pulling in any human emotion, and it's not rationalizing from a holistic human perspective. So therefore, to me, I would push back against the way we've even named it. The other piece of it, when we look intergenerationally, the people younger than us are born into a reality we can't see. We are in a moment in time. Our brains are hardwired to create a reality that we can comprehend, we can perceive, where we can feel safe, even though we all know safety and security are not real things, right? But that's our human ability and hardwiring to survive. And so when we think about younger generations, we have to understand that to us, we're parsing these things out because we've watched these things change. And so to us, they're layers and layers and layers on top of our experience. But for them, that is just the foundational reality, right? And the way that things layer for them is different. And so ultimately, to me, it comes back to your core question. Are we thinking about whether or not they have agency, right? I write hooks. I write hooks all day long. I test things to see, ooh, did that work well? Did the algorithm like it? Did people resonate with it? Right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, what is the intention? Because then you also got to get into, what are you selling? Is it a good product? I mean, is it Yucca? I'm a Yucca mom. I just scan everything, right? If you're telling me if there's a certified thing, I go to Sephora with my 10-year-old. She's obsessed with this store. She's 10. She only needs certain things, like, oh, that little green leaf. Those are all of our certified organic healthy things. Scan those on Yucca. They're chock full of harmful chemicals.
Yeah.
That to me is not consent. It's not transparency. Is it manipulation? Sephora knows
Yeah.
who people are.
And I think that's where it's not just Sephora that sets these types of things.
100%.
So there's also there is a level of, like you said, it is cascading knowledge. So if you don't have someone that's in the industry, no one can tell you that, oh, you actually only have to have a certain number of products in your beauty product in order for it to be certified organic.
Right.
And now you know, like, hey, the same thing at grocery stores. Something could be organic, but if it doesn't have that 9 or the 4 on the sticker, it's
Such a good point.
not organic. So this is where I go back to education. And this is where brands have to be intentional in investing in insights, in research, and leading with data instead of leading with terminologies that confuse the consumer. You know, one of the things that I really like to focus on, especially with my work across different brands and agencies, is people still make the same decision even if they know the truth. You know, there is a lot of information out there since I was in elementary school about the harmful effects of I don't know if we want to brand drop here, but Mountain Dew. We all know, we've all heard lore for decades around, you know, Mountain Dew can start a car, goes in the dark at night. There are people who have done, Bill Nye, the science guy, has done different tests, but we all know that it's motor fuel, but we still drink it. Same with Doritos. You know, people know about dye 40. I've known that for you know, red dye 40 has been bad my entire life. I've read it on the back of things and I still purchased, I still ate. But having, like you said before, when brands, I can give you a lot of examples of brands that led with honesty and still saw great reward. And I think when we uplift those stories more, we're able to have more constructive conversations and more resonant ads that go out to not just children, but adults as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that education piece is definitely important. And one of the things that I like seeing is when brands teach the consumer how to engage with them. Even if they are kind of pulling away from AI or using AI differently, a brand that comes to mind that does that well is Polaroid. And they're sharing that these are still real pictures. Like, you don't have to use a filter or a frame on social media when you can have an actual real picture in your hand. Yet they still utilize AI in some ways when it comes to their marketing, but they're not very AI forward. It's very in alignment with their ethics and with their company values. And so going back to kind of like that ethical approach and looking at how important it is for these emerging generations to have honest, real, transparent brands that they're interacting with. They're actually looking at the data when they're deciding, they're looking at the AI data that's provided when deciding whether or not to purchase. So according to Trust Radius, Gen Z reports the highest trust in AI generated content. And so even though they're doing the research, they're more likely to like click and see the source of a thing. They're also more likely to trust AI generated content. 30% trust it always or very often. But again, they're clicking to verify those sources. And so if they're clicking to verify those sources, what opportunities and responsibilities do you feel that brands have to make sure that they are sharing that true, honest, authentic information? What do you guys feel about what the data is saying there?
I would say instead of just looking at the number, let's ask a question as to why. You know, that's what I like to look at before we get into it. You know, the idea that they trust AI more than the average, more than non-AI content. Why is that? That actually is stemming from the fact of influencers. Influencers have started to erode the trust of Gen Z. Gen Z grew up on influencers. They were the one that told them what to buy. You know, we're seeing very similarly with Gen Alpha. Some Gen Alpha trust the influencer more than they trust their families. So this is a very normal thing that we've seen across other generations. Same thing happened if we want to take it back to like Gen X. You know, they had the same thing happen with celebrity endorsements. So they started to lose trust in, you know, if they see this brand and this celebrity, then I may not believe it because I know this celebrity gets work done. So that's where we've kind of seen there's always a person proxy that these generations have, that once you've lost that trust, it's hard to get back. And instead of it going to another type of person, it's now going to AI. So when they're saying they trust AI more, it's because there is a Gen Z mindset that humans are not involved in AI, that AI is just working their behest and their needs. It's like they have their own pet robot or their pet internet service. And in the actuality of it, that's not the case. You know, humans are deciding a lot of what AI does. AI looks at human interactions in order to figure out what a citation is going to be. So the fact that kids are trusting it, it's also because of a lack of knowledge. So there becomes this conversation now is how long, one, is this trust going to last? You know, is this going to be something that goes until they're fully adults in their frontal lobe fully forms? You know, is it going to stay this way?
Yeah, I'm gonna add on from two different angles, from the psychology side and from the implementation of marketing side. So on the psychology side, Ava, I think you nailed it. Like, again, let's go back to our hardwiring as human beings to seek safety and security. We want to stay alive. We want to survive. So what does safety and security look like for these generations of people? Generational is still contextual. I mean, I'm technically a millennial, but I actually align more with Gen X because of my upbringing. I grew up on a farm in a small town. Like, there's all of these pieces, right? So like, what is happening in those moments of time? I'm sure we could all kind of break that down to lead to how that brain is processing what is safety, what's security. The fact that you were like, oh, well, they see it as it's non-human. I don't trust humans. I don't trust humans anywhere. Look what they've all done. Look what we're doing. I don't want anything to do with that. That makes sense. A large language model is a collection of human thoughts that were completely unchecked and put on the internet, and it's getting more sophisticated. There definitely is, but like, it's still human. From a marketing perspective, though, when we start to think about, you know, they're asking these questions, what's the education? One of the things I help people do is build what I call psychologically safe funnels, where instead of the intent of the funnel being conversion, the intent of the funnel is elevating the human being and verifying as they go, is this in alignment with your aspiration? Is this in alignment with the higher version of you that you're trying to become? That sounds really fluffy, but you bring it to life in a way, like that's the soil, right? It comes to life through the trunk and the branches. It looks different in the language, but subconsciously 95% of that decision making is occurring, right, in the subconscious. It's all hitting the limbic system first. We're feeling our way through emotions or through decisions with emotion.
And I'll even say they're actually relying on it for the decision making. Gen Z specifically, and this is really different from Gen Alpha. I do want to make sure that delineation is clear. Gen Alpha is still rolling it around in their mouth. They're still figuring it out. Gen Z, You make a really great point there, Chelsea. That trust from humans is cascading where that trust in those questions that they're too afraid to ask because they, full transparency, a lot of Gen Z lacks empathy. A lot of them, and this is scientifically proven, they lack social skills. A lot of them, if we want to have a realer conversation, a lot of them have literacy issues. And when you're not able to articulate yourself, you find it difficult to articulate yourself, even in your own brain, to other people. So it's easier to articulate to something that does not talk back to you other than out of your own benefit. So I can ask, hey, I don't know how to wash white laundry, and not have, oh, you're X, Y, and Z age, no one taught you, instead of having to go through the social back and forth and having to navigate that and they're easily uncomfortable. They're easily intimidated. This is something that is not intimidating. It takes over for them. One of the things we like to talk about, and I see someone commented, I don't know if we can break the third wall, but I did.
Yes, please.
The content because it takes effort to verify it. Well, actually, we're seeing more of what we like to call a zero-click environment. So a lot of them are not verifying that the content or that the citation. And just for people on the call that may not know, a citation is when you put in, hey, what's the best shoe on ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude? Anything you get back with a link on it is a citation. And the way that these LLMs and these AI agents develop or pull out these citations is for a couple of different things: user interaction, longevity. They look at the reliability of the site traffic, how often is it being mentioned in other areas that it can view. That's why you'll notice a lot of your citations are either company websites, blogs. You'll also see Reddit, of course. Because these are really text-heavy sites that allow the AI and have allowed human users to go through, and there's just a lot more interactions, and they find it to be meatier for people. But they're also not reading it all the way through. But these are what the LLMs are doing. What people are doing, which is affecting a lot of the marketing issues that we're seeing, is they're just typing in, what's the best trainer to, sorry, I've been doing some UK work. What's the best sneaker to do for your first marathon? And they're not always exploring and researching like they used to when you search on Google, for example, traditional. So now they're actually just taking that citation because they put so much, I'm 5'1", I have a 7-inch gait, I flat-footed, this is going to be short terrain. And they trust that because of all of the detail that they were willing to provide, that now the citation is the best option. So they're not even always taking the time to verify it. And when they are verifying, that timeline, which used to be 1 to 2 hours, now could be like 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah. One of the things that you said, Ava, that really stood out to me is how Gen Z is easily made uncomfortable. Like when they're sharing information and they get pushed back, it can be very easy for them to feel uncomfortable. And we're seeing a rise in the way that, and the frequency, and I should say, we're seeing a rise in the frequency at which this generation is utilizing AI, with 80% of them using an AI companion and spending more time with their AI companion than with real friends. But get this, the same study shows that they would like to have more of those human interactions. And so one of the opportunities that I see here in the marketing space is for live brand activations. And I think we're going to continue to see more and more of these in 2026 and beyond, is companies actually creating opportunities for their customers to not only engage with the brand, but to also engage with other people who are engaging with the brand, and to be able to build a community around that product. So Chelsea, when it comes from the psychology aspect, what are some things that you're seeing when it comes to, what are some opportunities you're seeing when it comes to brands connecting with Gen Z, knowing that Gen Z tends to shy away from these uncomfortable situations that may make them feel like they aren't equipped to handle whatever that interaction is.
I love this topic. I love it for so many reasons. I just had a conversation the other day about some research I want to dig into. So my depth of research is in the construct of belonging as a psychological construct. And so when we talk about building healthy brand relationships, I teach a course on how to build a belong brand. So belonging is an essential human need. It is just as important as food and water. And the lack of it won't kill you as fast, but it will deteriorate your mental and physical health over time. It will cause a lot of psychological issues, a lot of diseases, chronic disease, cancer. There's a lot of research there. And so one of the things that I've been looking into is how can we include this more humanistic relationship in brands. A brand cannot replace a human being. So how do we create a belong brand where people don't just feel like they belong with the product or service, but with the community that is created by that brand? What is, if any, the social responsibility of a brand, especially an established brand, to be able to help regulate nervous systems and even offset things like the loneliness epidemic by using its influence to create a space where people can come together? Because it makes complete sense to me that people are isolating as a survival mechanism. I fully believe that we're all actually just living in a constant state of survival right now. Cortisol levels are not regulating. To me, there's not a lot of question marks around why the world is doing what the world is doing, and health issues are what they are, and mental health and all these things. It makes complete sense.
Yeah.
But this requires people to take profit as the end all be all, which is not an easy thing. It's also, I'm not trying to live in a dream here and put it over here and put people back at the nucleus of this. There's also research that shows that actually can increase profits, right? So there is profitability attached to it if we want to stay in our whole little capitalist space here. But that's where I'm at with it. Is there are ways to bring this in, there are ways to make it profitable, and there are ways to use that influence to open up and create an environment that can actually help holistically whole generations of people through the influence and relationship the brand has created.
That's really good, Chelsea. You said that you talked about how brands can help regulate the systems and nervous systems of their users by the way that they interact with them. And even though it could be a mindset shift in ways, it also goes back to building community. And as they're building community is going to lead to profitability. And so, because people now feel like they want to belong. And what you said about belonging being so important, it really is. We saw a lot of online communities develop during COVID. And then after COVID, a lot of people were meeting up in real life, and they're so excited to be able to connect with the different people from different groups that they were able to meet up with in real life. There's a group that I'm a part of that they sell designer diaper bags. Don't judge me, y'all.
Oh no, that's
I
cool.
have children.
I love
so I like a good designer diaper bag. So anyway, in the group, I like to watch the way that the product is marketed. The group is created and moderated by this brand. So during COVID, not only did we have people were at home and they were sick and they were quarantining and they're trying to protect themselves and their families, but we also saw a huge slowdown in imports. And so this brand, I'm watching them with the way that they're building community and they're helping people find exclusive bags that are no longer in production. And it really felt like, as you're looking through the conversations, like this brand was your friend. And so as we create brand personas that are interacting with the community, we really do have the opportunity to look at it from a psychological point of view and say, how does my brand make my customers' life better? Not just how does it solve this specific problem that they may have, but how am I actually making their life better? Because as a result, they're going to keep coming back. They're going to want to be in community. They're going to want to be plugged in to whatever it is that your brand is building. And so we really have an opportunity to look at our users more holistically, which is really interesting that technology, the rise of this use of AI, is actually fostering and helping this idea of community in real life develop in a way that I don't think we were expecting.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And specifically being at Reddit and understanding the impact of digital communities, we've done a lot of research that talks about the evolution of these communities, because the community that you're talking about, a lot of COVID really exacerbated this. Ideology has always been there. It may not have touched all of us because we did not have niche interests. So like when people are getting into gaming, and when I was younger, people were like, oh, what's PewDiePie? If you weren't a gamer, you didn't understand what PewDiePie was. But PewDiePie had an entire ecosystem, a community dedicated to it. Let's take even Roblox, Fortnite. Fortnite's community was so deep. When you went in to go see the Fortnite movie that they put out last year or the year before, the references in that movie, people didn't understand who the Frankenstein in the little car was. Turns out that was a huge player that was a part of the community that passed away. And when the viewers and the fans of that community went to go see the movie, people in there who just went to go see it, they didn't understand why everybody was standing up and clapping and crying and having a big moment. But these digital communities, they are supposed to have real life connections. That's the thing. A lot of Gen Z and Gen Alpha are getting introduced to digital communities without the real life connective tissue. And that's what makes things feel a lot more disconnected and uncomfortable. And that opened the door for them to want to connect even further into digital. And that's when they're connecting further into these chat bots. They never did the meetups like they're used to, like AOL chat. There was the same thing, digital communities everywhere, but people still planned meetups. People still planned like, hey, there was the ideology that I can't wait to meet you in real life. That's not the case anymore. They feel like to meet in real life now, because they were so disconnected when they were younger, it's going to ruin the illusion of friendship. Like, I'd rather be deeper online because I don't know how you'll perceive me when I come out. But this also is an opportunity for brands to come in and set that standard. Brands and people learn from each other, and it goes back and forth. If brands don't see people when they're building their own individual communities coming together in IRL, why would I invest in IRL interactions of building my digital community? But this is where, instead of looking for head nods from our consumers, what if we provided the structure back? So, hey, we have this big online community, we have this big Reddit community, we have all these YouTubes, we want to come together and bring you guys and interact. I think the best example of this is what Bravo did with BravoCon. A lot of Bravo's content was fully digital communities, digital, or you're watching things on streaming. Very low at the bottom of that is linear TV, but everything is digital nonetheless. So now it's like, okay, we're always talking about these people. We're always talking about Real Housewives. We're talking about Andy. I never get to see Basketball Duncan Hoops 465, who has been defending me in my views against Portia on Real Housewives of Atlanta. I never get to meet them. And now Bravo has provided a place to take that digital community and give it an IRL space to thrive. Now it's, okay, we have the big BravoCon. How do we continue these IRL interactions? How do we continue to reference what you saw online and bring it into the real life? This is where I think brands, like you said before, LeeAnah, need to start pushing people outside of the screen. And fine, bring the screen big IRL, but have sunlight be there. You know, if you are a football brand, you know how big r/Panthers is on Reddit. What does it look like at the next big game, having a full interaction for everyone a part of this community to come together? You know, yes, there's a level of anonymity, but there was always anonymity in digital communities. This isn't new. This is what's usually have happened. And even if you're on a site like a Facebook and Instagram and X, where you don't have the option for automatic anonymity, people still choose to have a vague name. They don't always have their photo in, or they maybe have a picture of a landscape. All of these are digital communities are created as a reaction to where people feel like they're missing things. There's a graph that I know I can't build it out for you guys fully right now, but picture a graph where you have identity at the top. So identity being a mom or being a woman, a Black woman, Hispanic, somebody with curly hair. Interest, I'm interested in chess. I'm interested in horror movies. What are the moments that I can interact? Maybe a movie launch or something like that. And then specifically, what is the lifestyle that I live, or the lifestyles that I'm interested in? These are the intersections in which community thrives. That's how you end up with communities like r/girl gamers. You end up with communities like r/mom chess and things like that, r/daddit, r/curly hair, but I want to go short. But this is how you end up with these communities where people can explore and exist. But how do we make that exploration and existing feel more comfortable from behind the screen?
Yeah, that's good. I hope you guys caught that. Communities thrive at the intersection of identity and interest. That's really, really powerful. And we see that too, not only with big brands like sports brands or gamer brands, but we also see this with niche brands when we look at podcasts. Last year, 2025, we saw a huge influx of live podcast activations where people would take get themselves from behind the screen and put their podcast on a live stage with an audience, where the audience was able to meet them and get autographs and ask questions and be a part of the experience. This also fostered an opportunity for the audience to grow deeper in its love for the brand, because now they're surrounded by other people who are also loving the brand. Chelsea, can you talk to us a little bit about what happens when we love something and then we're also surrounded by a whole bunch of people that love the same thing? What's going on in the brain when that happens?
Yeah. So the human experience is a somatic experience, which means it's an embodied experience. We move through life using our head, our heart, and our gut. We get stuck here, but the heart actually has memory. The gut, right, is that intuition. When we are looking at those in-person experiences where the communication is more contextually rich, like here, this is more contextually rich than if you were to listen to us on a podcast and just have audio. You can see our faces, you can see our movement, versus reading an article where you can't hear the inflection. I think that's all fairly basic. But when you get into a physical space and you are experiencing something that is releasing dopamine and it makes you feel connected, head, heart, and gut are in alignment. And then you are in this energetic connection with other human beings, which we've already established. Belonging is a core need, right? The brain is creating these synapses, these pathways. It's becoming associated with your brand. Your brand then becomes subconsciously associated with this feeling of deep, rich, somatic. I'm going to use the word contentment, because happiness, when we talk about emotional accuracy, contentment is higher than, right? It is the sense of groundedness, of enoughness. And so to me, in the brain, that's what we're really getting to, is now all of a sudden I'm associating that cups full all the way across with the brand that made it happen.
Wow. So the real money, the real opportunity, the real powerful takeaway when it comes to these live event activations is the power of getting the head, the heart, and the gut in alignment. That's really powerful. When I can think back on my life and I can pinpoint some brands that really get my heart, my head, my heart, and my gut into alignment. There is a grocery store that I love, and it's not because it's trendy, it's not because it's popular, it's because it gives me memories of my grandmother when she was alive. And so when you say that, like, this brand always has a place in my heart, because even as she was aging, as she was losing her memory, they were very intentional. They're like, oh, we remember her favorite things.
Mm-hmm.
We can take you right to them. And I mean, these are people that are working at a grocery store. Like, they probably couldn't name her, but she frequented so often that they remembered her face. And so those moments that we have to build community around our brand really do create brand loyalty. Because I tell you, now I am a faithful shopper at that grocery store. I'm in a completely different state, completely different people. But I go to that grocery store because when I'm there, I feel like I have that alignment, and I get that same type of experience. It's kind of like that fast food restaurant where they say, have a blessed day after every card. Like, you just have that, you have that expectation. And so we get to create meaningful moments for our users and our audiences when they're interacting with our brands. And AI gets to help us in developing those moments rather than taking away from those moments.
Yeah. And also partnering with research to contextualize those moments. You know, that's how we end up with, for example, you really leaned into nostalgia right now. If we were on the phone with another brand, they would have been like, oh, that means we just need to bring back everything from her childhood. If they, you know, if you would have told that story to an AI system, that's what they would have gotten out of it. Nostalgia is what she's looking for. And then all of a sudden we wonder why we keep ending up with remakes of movies all the time, because nostalgia is a very big driver for millennials, which make up a very large amount of the buying power, specifically within the US. And then we end up with remakes versus people and researchers are actually the ones that'll be able to take your story and say, like, okay, here is how we break down why the nostalgia matters, why she needs nostalgia right now. Okay, because in a world in which people have lost a lot of loved ones in a very mass effect over the past couple of years, there's not a lot of opportunities and spaces to remember people they've lost. And how can we amplify the voices of people that are no longer here? Now that changes versus it being nostalgia. And now that same grocery store brand is like, well, maybe we should just bring back our old logo from 1994. Like, you see how one story can take a brand down two different paths. AI is supposed to help pinpoint. It won't help grow. It won't help you strategize. It may help you execute. I won't lie, we'll help you execute, but you can't execute properly unless you're going into that AI system and giving it what it needs to properly execute and give you the result that you're looking for, that increases brand engagement and recall, increases the likelihood of them purchasing from you. But that doesn't happen when you rely on AI for the entire piece of this. You're going to end up being like, well, it told me to make community around nostalgia. Why isn't it working? You basically made a mourning group. That's why.
Yeah.
Right.
You didn't build community around the right. You didn't find the reason behind the nostalgia. You didn't contextualize it properly because you never looked at the work. You relied on AI to give you everything. AI is to execute. It's not it's barely great for post. It's good for execution once you have all of the things you need to program it properly.
Oh, I love that. And I know we're getting close on time. I just want to add one final thing. In business, we love to dehumanize things, right? We create this degree of separation and we call things all these things, or brand, marketing, AI, It's the people. There's no organizational communication. Organizations are communication. We're all just people saying things, agreeing on things, coming together, building the things. AI is an amplifier. It is artificial. And I love what you were saying, Ava. I knew I was so excited for this panel because I learned so much from you every time I talk to you. Ugh. But that's really what it is. We're people doing business with people. Show up as a person. Use tools to amplify your humanity. And I think that we have an answer to how to use AI.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good. So I hope you guys caught that, right? As that AI is a tool that can be used, but you've got to dig deeper. You have to go the road less traveled. And the way that you do that is by being a human. Like your humanity is your superpower. AI has the power to look at what was and to generate from that place. But your superpower is you are living in what is, and you get to determine what will be. And so you want to make sure that you're utilizing AI in a way that is going to drive you, your users, and your community forward. Well, ladies, thank you so much for being here today. Before we hop off the line, please let us know where we can find you, how we can connect with you. Chelsea, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so LinkedIn is my guilty pleasure home. I would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. I love to do meet and greets. It's just Chelsea Burns. Put me in there. You'll see me. Green's my color. I would love to connect.
Same. Yes, won't be too different. Ava Torro on LinkedIn. And if you guys want to learn more about insights and trends that are going to be coming down the pipeline this year, how to appropriately use AI so you don't spend all of your coins buying a bunch of things that may not be the right fit for your business, and understanding how consumers are moving, please subscribe to the Consumer Climate Report and working with other researchers to prove out new insights and trends happening across consumers globally. So excited for this conversation. This was so great. Thank you so much, Culture Group, LeeAnah, Nick, Chelsea. Like, this has been such a great conversation to have.
Awesome. And you can find us everywhere. You can find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Kulur Group, Kulur with a K. And we are always available to help you with your marketing needs. We're so excited for all of you all being here today. And you have a fabulous rest of your week. Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye.